I'm always fearful of this moment every year. Public speaking is like the last thing on my favourite list. I was thinking of a few things this morning. Prabhupada's different moods in his preaching and in his life. So I'll just speak of those at random, no special order. For me, Srila Prabhupada embodies all the superlative characteristics of a great soul. We see in his very life the way he conducted himself, the achievements which he accomplished over his lifetime. Definitely a great and inspiring personality. I was just thinking of a few things at random this morning. Of Prabhupada's different moods. There was a habit the secretaries had of reading Srila Prabhupada's letters from his followers and disciples. So a couple of letters I was thinking about. So they would read the letters to Prabhupada and see what his response was. So one time they read a letter from some aspiring disciples who were intimating to Srila Prabhupada how they were struggling to follow the principles. And Srila Prabhupada's reaction was that he was shedding tears. And his comment was, they are struggling so hard. So that is an example of his compassion. Another time I remember hearing of a letter written by one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples who wrote to Srila Prabhupada requesting his permission to take shelter of another greater Vaishnava in whom he could take greater shelter. And Srila Prabhupada's response was, you tell him I bless him that he will never advance. So there's Srila Prabhupada's conflicting moods. A couple of other things I was thinking about this morning. One time the devotees were travelling in a lift, I think it was in New York, and Srila Prabhupada related to the devotees, he said, I want the benediction to fight for Krishna, just like Arjuna, up until the very last breath. We saw in Srila Prabhupada's life he was preaching right to the very end, translating his purports, giving his purports for the Bhagavatam even on his deathbed. So he was granted that benediction. Another thing that came to my mind this morning, Srila Prabhupada related to the devotees how as a young boy he climbed to the top of the Queen Victoria building. There was a scaffold there. So at the time in Calcutta it was the largest structure. So the devotees, one of the devotees mentioned to Srila Prabhupada, oh, you must have been very brave. He said, still brave, otherwise how would I have come to your country? And another thing that astounds me about Srila Prabhupada's life is that Krishna never handed everything to Srila Prabhupada on the platter. He had to work so hard for everything he achieved. In those years, struggling in India, trying to preach, you know, his first transcript of the Bhagavad Gita was stolen. So years of work gone. But as Srila Prabhupada said, I am not one to be easily discouraged. So he just kept on going. And of course when he got to the US, even he was looking at how he could go back after some time, because it was so difficult. Those of us who are getting a little older now, we appreciate probably more than the youngers how old age produces many difficulties, the deteriorating bodies, deteriorating conditions, and we generally like to have a comfortable and easier life. Srila Prabhupada gave up all that comfort Of course, initially when he took sannyas, he said, I was virtually a vagabond. He only had the clothes that he was wearing. And even then he had someone provided him with some clothing after some time. So Srila Prabhupada had to work very hard for everything he achieved. He once made a joke. He said, Krishna didn't tell Arjuna, you just sit down and smoke ganja and I will take care of everything. So it's similar with Srila Prabhupada. As we say, it was not handed to him on a platter and he had to work so hard for everything. So he's a great example to us of determination and courage and sincerity and all those wonderful qualities. So one thing I'd like to say in conclusion is that during Srila Prabhupada's final year they were in Rishikesh, and some guest came, and there would be some people sitting amongst the group while Srila Prabhupada was preaching, and one of the people was asking if Srila Prabhupada could do some sort of magic, because it was some of these incarnations, and they, by sleight of hand they produced something like some ash or rasgulla or. So he was wondering if Prabhupada can do some magic. So Srila Prabhupada said, all over the world, people are now chanting Hare Krishna. Is that not magic? Is that not magic? So we are all the recipients of and blessed by Srila Prabhupada's magic. And I would like to offer my thanks to Srila Prabhupada for his wonderful achievements and for what he has done for the world. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.